take you back to a point in my life where I had a childhood wound. And it relates to my dad. And it honestly was just, again, something that I didn't talk about, didn't share, nobody asked. So I just shoved it. My earliest memory as a child is when I was standing at the front door, probably 2 or 3 years old, somewhere in that vicinity, just having a huge meltdown, kicking, crying, when my dad would leave. Has anyone ever experienced that? It's definitely something that was ingrained in my brain from very early on. See, if you're around little kids or little girls and their daddies, you know that there's like a bond there that is so incredibly strong. And the little girl loves her dad, like idolizes, right? So I was that child. I absolutely adored my dad. And I would be with him all the time. A lot of times when my mom was at work, he would care for me. I say care very loosely because he wasn't the best caregiver. But I just enjoyed being with him. We would go to the racetrack. I would go to other places with him, play with kids, all those things. But I do recall many times being left. So as I grew up, I started to recognize kind of what he was doing. And well, let's just say they really weren't good things. And so the significant memory that I have, and I'm talking like between the ages of 5 and 10, like yes, I had that memory of being left at the front door and hysterically crying, and now I look to think of my mom and how she felt about that. Sorry, Mom. But between 5 and 10, the significant childhood wound that I suffered, that I chose to work through and heal. That wound was somewhere around the age 8 or 9. I recall being at a home that was directly behind our duplex that we lived in. This home was the home of a woman that my dad was having relations with. And not knowing any better, right? At the time I'm a child, you think that your parents should be guiding you in, the right places until you learn that they don't. But I sat across from him at the kitchen table, and he tied a tourniquet on his arm and injected a needle into his vein and put something in it. I can only assume what it was now. But let me tell you, that moment has always been in my mind. And in his thought processes at that time, he was teaching me something. And to be honest, he did. He taught me not to do drugs. That you use needles, those things, okay? So he succeeded. But the wound that it created for me is, how can this man who is my dad, who loves me, how could he sit there across from his own child? And I know I asked him to stop. I know I was crying. Dad, don't do it, please, don't do that. But how could he do that right in front of me? it was a big question in my mind in that time of my childhood. And to me, I didn't see that he loved me. I didn't think that I was worthy enough or good enough for him. Like, because why would he do this right in front of me? It didn't make any sense to my child brain. So fast forward a little bit more, my mom decided that we were done there. We were done. And she bought a house and we moved, and I would occasionally see him. I didn't get along with him very well. I mean, can you imagine? But I eventually drifted. I knew in my heart that I could not be around him. And I say it was to protect my peace, and I still say that. I made the choice to have no contact at a certain point in my life. And honestly, that was probably about high school. I really was exercising my right. You know, I'm done. Because I just knew that if I was around him, who was not wanting to make an effort to make positive, impactful changes in his life, I knew I didn't want to be around it because I did not want to go down that path. So I did say no, I'm done. And I started to really separate, and it was hard. I will tell you, it was very hard because sometimes I didn't feel like I had the support of those around me. A lot of times I would hear the you shoulds do XYZ, he's your dad, you should love him, you should blah, blah, blah. But going back to that memory of across from the table, I already had my mind made up of this man does not love me. I'm not good enough for him to make him change his ways. It's the truth. That's what I thought.